Can you?
Yes.
Do you have a Can you just
Turn it off.
She's no. She's here. Can you hear that?
I hear the sound, but you have to lower the volume on your headphones and it's on because it's a lot of pressure if you talk into this.
Hold on to this.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, look at me. No, I'm saying just hold on to it.
I'll take it. I'll take it. And then,
Check to see if you can really lower. Yeah, it's much too loud, and then it goes down. The distortion goes down.
Just talk again.
Yes, I'm back here. So let's see. I can adjust the levels.
Yeah, this one's going.
That's much better. A bit because as soon as there's some sound getting in, it's getting better. You can lower the volume overall, and that's fine. Yeah, we're coming.
Testing, testing.
Michael Kringen, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
US Grain Council.
thank you.
Una gente que está trabajando muy cercano con nosotros
Bien.
de US Grains Council.
Okay, excelente.
Y el jefe
Excelente.
So you're going to
vino
use this
a
as some
conocer.
system.
Usted estuvo, ¿no? Cuando Ryan LeGrand
Sí.
estuvo aquí trabajando con él.
And they do too.
Good.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Once again, I am Manuel Otero, proudly the Director General of FAICA, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture. Welcome to the pavilion, our pavilion, the home of sustainable agriculture on agriculture. This pavilion reflects the new spirit of technical cooperation. All together, we have to push and defend the transformation of the agriculture sector of the Americas, but looking always to the rest of the world. I would like to give a warm welcome to Ernie Shih, to A.G. Kawamura from Solution from the Land, thanking that you are partners from COP27. Also to Linda Schmidt, to U.S. Grain Council, to Grail Dennison, the Hornell Institute, and Michael Cranion from U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action. We are going to talk about renewable biofuels. During many, many years, when we talk about agriculture, always the question was agriculture simply related to production. The limits of agriculture are expanding, and our sector has a very important relationship with energy production, obviously with nutrition. So we have to talk about these issues and once again involve the farmers, that be conscious that they are the protagonists of a new time, of new era. We see in the continent that especially in some countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Colombia, biofuels is something very important. So I'm eager to wait and to listen to you. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the partnership.
Well, thank you very much, Director General Otero. We are very appreciative of the leadership that AIC has provided over the years, helping to share the good news about solutions that agriculture can bring, not just to addressing the climate crisis, but to the entire range of challenges that the world is trying to address as we're working out through the Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Ernie Shih. I'm the president of Solutions from the Land, and I have the good fortune to be able to moderate this session today, where we're going to be taking a deep, hard look at the role of renewable biofuels. as a solution, not just to climate change, but increasingly now we're recognizing the other benefits, these concurrent co-joined benefits that greater use of biofuels can provide. And one of the new focuses that we'll be talking about today is public health and the benefits there. So over the course of this hour, we are going to be hearing from a panel of experts that will be sharing their insight and perspectives with us. We'll first hear from Gail Dennison. Gail is the, let me get her title exactly right here so I don't mess it up. She is the Director of Development and External Partnerships with the Hornell Institute. And the Hornell Institute is an independent biomedical research institute associated with the University of Minnesota. And Gail is going to be talking largely about the public health issues that I mentioned. We're also going to hear from Linda Schmid. Linda is the Manager of Ethanol Policy and Sustainability at the U.S. Grains Council. And she has a lot of responsibilities, but her primary responsibility is for multilateral engagement. So you're at the right place, Linda, to be working on that. And our third presenter today is Michael Sinian. Michael is a dairy farmer, and as we've been hearing at the events over the morning, farmers were at the center of all of these discussions. So we're thrilled that Michael is able to be with us. So we'll continue on as we move through the hour here. And I think next up is going to be Gail Dennison with the Hormel Institute, who has a pre-recorded message for us. Gail was not able to be with us, traveling all the way over from the United States, but she felt it was important enough to put this 8 to 9 minute message together. So with no further ado, we will go to her message. Oh, there is a delay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gail Dennison with the Hormel Institute, University of Minnesota. I am Director of Development and External Relations, and very happy and thankful to greet you, all of you from the Solutions of the Land and the Inter-America Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture. And I thank you to Mr. Ernie Shea and all of you for inviting me to give a very brief update on our biofuels research project. This has been a joint project between Case Western and University of Illinois, Chicago, the Energy Resources Center there, and the Hormel Institute. The funders that have sponsored our project have been with the Institute for about 6 to 8 years. I'm going to say the very first project we did, checking emission study and looking at what is in fossil fuel that could possibly be carcinogenic and replaced by cleaner ethanol. And so for these past years, this is what we've been studying, and we are just embarking on publishing this research. So while I can talk about it in an overview, I can't give the specifics until that research that is intellectual property can be safely published. And so we have found indeed that the BTEX compounds we've studied have indeed carcinogenic impact. And so we will be publishing these results. We've looked at its impact on breast cancer and on lung cancer and general cancer development. Dr. Shujin Liu previously was with the Hormel Institute, and then due to personal reasons wanted to move closer to family, and so he is now at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. And what Dr. Liu, as reported by Stefan Mueller, has found is that indeed the higher PM2.5 and PAHs is associated with higher mortality, including something very unusual that also has an impact on chemotherapy drugs. And so his research that will soon be published in a major research journal will show that these components of PAHs from engine exhaustion dramatically change lung cancer cell properties, including cell proliferation and migration, and have an impact on chemotherapy. They have done mice studies that have looked at lung tumor resistance to chemotherapy, and additionally analyzed a database of 4.6 million cancer patients. And so both the impact in the lab, in animal studies, and on human projections of the impact of this. And so we are very excited that he has identified biomarkers that can predict therapeutic reagents also to overcome that chemotherapy resistance. And so there are 1 to 2 papers that are in preparation for publication in very top journals. And so we are looking at the reduction of those BTEX PAHs by ethanol substitution in gasoline would make likely a positive impact on human health, particularly by improving the outcomes of chemotherapy patients. Our next researcher on this project is Dr. Lena Hillekivi-Clark. She's professor of food science and nutrition and assistant director for faculty affairs and a breast cancer researcher. And what Dr. Hillekivi-Clark has found is that indeed the vehicle emissions increase breast cancer risk. And she has worked with a group at University of Minnesota using car engine exhaust in the lab. And that by replacing 15% of gasoline with ethanol, excuse me, significantly reduce BTEX and other aromatic hydrocarbon emissions, especially benzene and toluene emissions. It caused pre-malignant breast lesions, and BTEX compounds downregulated a tumor suppressor, making the risk of cancer progression, of course, higher. Dr. Hillekivi-Clark is in the process also of submitting a manuscript to a high-impact journal on environmental subjects, and we are looking forward to that published research. Additionally, we will provide slides today from Dr. Stefan Mueller, who is our project manager. He's the principal economist from the Energy Resources Center, University of Illinois at Chicago. And he has studied further use of these and impact of the BTEX compounds. So the impact of aromatics in road transportation. Next slide. In electricity, and also in aviation fuels. That there are parallel scientific developments elevating the importance of this research, that impact of these compounds, for example, location of next to a major roadway, or as he showed in an earlier slide, aviation and those who work in that industry. So this, again, is a very, very brief overview of our research that is ongoing. I wish I could get into the specific amount of the compounds and the impact, the methods of the study, but this is close to a 2-year study that is just closing. And the key thing and the key takeaway is to understand that these under-researched BTEX compounds that are now unregulated and added to fossil fuels do have an impact on cancer progression, on cancer treatment. And further research not only is suggested and will be done, but also these very significant findings will be published soon in research journals that will be able to be read by researchers around the world and hopefully be used in by the industry to affect and impact policy on the ethanol additions to fossil fuel. So, Mr. Shea, Ernie, I thank you for this great opportunity. I wish that I could be there in person to answer questions. This is very much a groundbreaking study that is uncovering research. In fact, one of the researchers has filed for a patent on the discoveries because it is so unusual what has been found and the impact of these compounds. And so I just ask for your support of the ethanol industry, and we're going to be doing our part, providing well-researched data that can hopefully help in the cause. Thank you very much, and please feel free to reach out to me at the Hormel Institute. Just Google Hormel Institute, Gail Dennison, and we will get back to you. Thank you so much.
Well, Gail, thank you very much. And although you couldn't be with us in person, your message is resonating, and this is a recorded session. So we'll have the opportunity to share your findings and your work across the world as we continue to talk about solutions from agriculture and our value chain biofuel partners. Okay, we're going to move along to Linda Schmid with the U.S. Grains Council. And Linda, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Ernie. My name's Linda Schmid. I'm with the U.S. Grains Council, and I focus on ethanol policy and sustainability. And I wanted to mention, in the context of COP29, we're looking at bioethanol as an important component of nationally determined contributions. We believe countries should consider bioethanol as part of their commitments to reduce emissions. And the reason is because in the United States, between 2005 and 2019, because we integrated bioethanol into our petroleum supply by 10%, we reduced our emissions by 140 million metric tons. So countries that decide to include bioethanol in their fuel supplies can have a similar experience and decidedly reduce their emissions. Why is this important? It's important because there are so many different pathways to reducing emissions. It includes EVs. It includes biofuels. And if we are going to maintain temperatures or limit the increase in temperatures to 1.5, we have to look at all the avenues of reducing emissions. We recognize that in the world globally, there are still a huge number of internal combustion engines that use petroleum. And if we increase the amount of biofuels in those petroleum supplies, we can decidedly reduce emissions. So this is part of why the U.S. Grains Council decided to attend COP29. And if you look at current nationally determined contributions, you'll see that Canada has identified ethanol as a means of reducing their emissions, and there are other countries that are also considering this. So we recognize that NDCs are due by February 10th, 2025, and we urge folks who are working with countries, working with negotiators to determine what their NDCs will be, to look at the opportunity of biofuels. And as this panel was introduced, we want to consider the fact that Brazil blends at a 27% rate. That's a high rate. And if you've ever been to the mega city of Sao Paulo with 22 million people, you will see the health benefits of blending bioethanol at a 30% rate. You can walk around, it's quite surprising, and breathe pretty well in Sao Paulo because of their high ethanol blend rate. It is testament to the air quality contributions that bioethanol blends provide. Now, bioethanol is not only favorable to outdoor air, it is also favorable to indoor air. So the World Health Organization considers bioethanol a Tier 4 fuel. Therefore, when we have a number of countries who are making the switch from burning charcoal to clean fuels, many of them are choosing clean cooking with ethanol. And we have a great representative of a cook stove provider, Cocoa Networks, that's here with us today, who has done dramatic work in Kenya in providing these cook stoves after 10 years of research, trial, testing, and perfecting a cook stove with ethanol that works, and developing a business model that it provides these stoves to consumers and is now making a difference for Kenyans in how they cook and and reducing emissions. And we'll see here by this slide that there are many countries that could also switch to clean cooking with ethanol. So this, Ernie, I think demonstrates that there are outdoor and indoor benefits to using ethanol, whether you're mixing it with your petroleum or whether you're using it as a means to provide clean cooking. And I'd like to make another point. You know, we're just a couple doors down from the Trade and Investment House, where the WTO, the World Bank, UNCTAD, OECD have come together to say that trade in bioethanol is a means of decarbonizing. And we need to recognize then that when we put tariffs on bioethanol, we are increasing the cost of decarbonization. We're raising the premium for folks to use this high quality, clean burning fuel. So when we look at climate mitigation policies, part of addressing the need to reduce emissions is to look at excise taxes, to look at tariffs, to look at VAT, and to consider, are we putting a premium on reducing decarbonization? So I would say that in the US, we believe in the cross-border flow of bioethanol. We think that it is instrumental in reducing emissions, and we hope that policymakers, countries, representatives will consider bioethanol as a solution to the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thanks, baby. Yep, that's you. Leave it there. You go back one.
Sorry.
Linda, thank you very much. And it was so refreshing to hear you talk about solutions coming from agriculture, coming from renewable fuels. And here at the home of sustainable agriculture in the Americas, that's what the whole theme of this session is about, and a lot of the programming here. Because so often when we come to a COP, we talk about the 30% emissions in the agri-food system that are creating this additional pressure on climate change. And we don't spend enough time talking about the solutions. So we're going to circle back in the Q&A session and talk more about this good news that you're bringing forward today. So now let's turn to Michael Crinian. Michael is, as I said, a dairy farmer from South Dakota. He's also chair of the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action Group. Michael, you've been in dairy farming for a long time. Tell us a little bit about the steps you've been taking to reduce the carbon footprint of your operation.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on the panel here. Yes, I've been dairy farming for over 20 years. My wife and our daughters are in partnership with another family just outside Brookings, South Dakota. And we've been very active in looking to reduce our carbon footprint. And to do that, we've worked with Farmers for Sustainable Food out of Wisconsin, where they work with the dairy farms and with the crop producers who are supplying feed to the dairy, because the feed is the most intensive form of producing CO2 equivalents on the dairy operation. And first step, FSF will work with the crop farmers so that they can calculate what their carbon footprint is, and then evaluate it every year. And it's not telling them what sustainable practice to do, but they'll highlight a lot of different practices they can do. And what we've found so far is that industry-wide in the US, most farms that are in any sort of sustainable ag programs are usually doing about 7. What we have found is that the farmers around our farm, they're actually doing 9 sustainable ag practices, so which is good to see. And that has really helped us, because we have been able to show on our dairy farm that our carbon emissions are 19% below the industry average in the US. So, we're pretty happy. Knowing our farmers, we're never happy. We want to, how do we make it better? So we're actively looking at different practices, how we can do that.
Michael, we're passing the mic back and forth, but there's multiple dimensions of solutions that you can deliver as a dairy farmer. And as we're transitioning from a fossil economy to a bioeconomy, there's opportunities opening to replace fossil gas with renewable gas. And I understand that you've been experimenting with a methane digester on your farm. Tell us a little bit about that journey that you've been on, and how is it working, and what do you think the magnitude of the contribution can be in terms of the emission reductions if we shifted significantly from dependence upon fossil natural gas to renewable natural gas from things like dairy cows?
That's a very good question, Ernie. Yeah, there's just putting in the digester alone it's been a learning process. There's like any time when you moving a lot of volume of liquids every day, there's some learning steps along the way, but we're very happy with the way it is going. It is, even our neighbours are telling us they're reduced odor around because we're capturing all the renewable natural gas. It is working well. I do know of some other technologies that are coming down the tracks that renewable natural gas won't be the last step along the way. There's people looking at hydrogen and looking at some other attributes that could use the gas for, and more profitable ones. And it is. Oh, hello. No. Oh, sorry. My signal was coming and going there. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Or it's just dying out.
We can hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can
All right, everything, sorry. My apologies on that. There's the digester has been good to do. It is good to have the digester there. I do see that we'll have a lot of other opportunities for further research and development and further slicing and dicing the methane to make it into more profitable things. And wouldn't it be great at some stage where our milk income was only 50% of the total income of the dairy? We're not there yet, but I'd love to see it come at some stage.
Well, that's a great point. And, as we think about the 21st century renaissance of production agriculture, where farms are being valued and compensated in the marketplace, not just for the high quality food products that they produce, but for all of these additional what we call ecosystem services, and certainly delivering a renewable natural gas as a replacement for fossil fuel is another great example of that hopefully can provide new revenue streams to your operation as well. And whether or not we get to dairy farms being known as renewable natural gas farms that sell milk on the side, I guess remains to be seen. But that's part of this new dimension of agriculture. We're growing in terms of the scope and this magnitude of the contributions that we can deliver. So, Linda, let's go back to you. You talked about this opportunity for biofuels to be utilized more widely across the world and secure the outcomes that we know they can deliver. And we're a science-based industry. Science has shown us that we can clearly reduce emissions and improve, as we're finding from Gail Dennison's work, public health at the same time. So to really break through this barrier and scale up from maybe an E10 blend in the United States today to something in the mid-level blend range of an E25 or E30 and deliver even more benefits, what has to change in the enabling policy arena to unlock these additional benefits that we know we can provide?
Well, I think that we've got some model countries out there already who are blending at a very high rate, and I think that if folks look at the benefits that they have seen from blending at 27 and 20%, then policymakers can increase the blend rate. And I must say, I think in California already, there's legislation to increase the blend rate to 15%. And a lot of what is driving this is economic concerns. Oftentimes, bioethanol is cheaper than fossil fuels, so that is a driver that is having policymakers increase their blend rates. I think that as we see countries address their emissions, they're going to be looking for a reduction in the use of fossil fuels. So I think that the drive towards net zero is going to favor biofuels because biofuels can be a substitute for fossil fuels. So I think that another important aspect of this, of course, is the free cross-border flow of biofuels. So the United States is an enormous producer, the #1 producer of bioethanol. That is due largely because of a very high yield of corn per acre and also an increasingly high yield of ethanol when it's blended. So these two factors have really driven down emissions rates in the United States over the past 15 years. So the U.S. has demonstrated that it can drive down emissions in the production of ethanol, and it's also doing that on the farm. It's doing that on the farm by the way that farmers pay attention to soil health, by the energy they use on the farm. They're switching to renewables. That is decreasing emission rates. And then there's also dramatic change coming in bioethanol production, where bioethanol producers are not only producing co-products, CO2, animal feed, products for the medicinal and cosmetic industry. They are also beginning to store carbon. It's called carbon capture and storage, and that is going to bring the industry. It's one of the only industries that can go negative in terms of emissions. When we think of a full rollout of carbon capture and storage, we're at the very beginning stages of this. But once we're able to do this at scale, we're really going to reduce our emissions to a really substantial degree.
Linda, that's a great setup for, Michael, your next question. So you wear a lot of hats. You're a farmer, but you also do volunteer service work as chair of the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action organization. And yesterday, USFRA and CAS released another groundbreaking report that is really emphasizing the opportunity for the agriculture sector to become carbon negative in the not too near different future. So as the world looks for solutions, this is great news. Can you tell us a little bit about this report and how you hope policymakers will react to it?
Yeah, we're very excited about that, and we're very thankful for the 26 independent researchers that worked on this report for the last few years, and then it was reviewed by the National Academy of Sciences, and it is showing the potential for U.S. agriculture to be greenhouse gas negative. There's 9 different chapters dealing with all the different productions systems within ag. Also, we have a chapter on food waste as well, so that that is an important part of our carbon footprint. And just going back actually to Linda's talking about the ethanol and that, one of the co-products of ethanol is dried distillers grains. And I have, when we were doing our calculation for our farm, DDGs are actually carbon negative. So I'm really happy to see that in our ration. So thank you. And but yeah, going back to the report, I encourage everyone to read it. There's a lot of good information in it, and it gives a good opportunity for, no matter what your farming system is, that there's opportunities for you to be more sustainable, and that's helps us create a better planet.
And Michael, agriculture is a complex industry. We deal with living systems, and I believe the National Academy report, the peer-reviewed report, is emphasizing that there is no one pathway, that we're looking for multiple pathways by which we can become carbon negative. So it's a journey that we've been on, but the good news is the agriculture sector is getting better and better at reducing emissions and concurrently addressing the other major challenges like food insecurity and biodiversity loss. So that's the good news side of the coin, that we've got something that really the world needs. But Linda, as we've been coming to these meetings over the years, we found that the ethanol family, global family, has not always been on the same page. And sometimes we've heard the message that my biofuels are better than your biofuels. And this, I guess, normal and healthy competition that we experience in many sectors sometimes can have unintended consequences. And one is that I think it detracts attention from the good news story that collectively, whether you're producing ethanol or biodiesel in the United States or in South America or maybe in Africa someday, it's still a better quality product than our petroleum fuels. So what can we do to help, in this case, the ethanol family that you're so closely associated with, really unite and come together and deliver a more unified voice in this good news story that this is an undertapped solution pathway that the world really should pick up on quickly if we're to achieve the goal of holding warming below 1.5 degrees. So what can we do to bring the family together?
That's a really good question. And I think that what I have seen is, I believe that when we bring scientists together with ethanol producers and policymakers, when we have science-based discussions, when we introduce research reports, when we put the data on the table, when we're able to talk about the benefits of bioethanol together and then have that positive feedback from the research that's being done, and also looking at the trajectory of ethanol and the improvements that have been made, I think that that is a way for bioethanol advocates to come together. We are also working actively with organizations such as the UNFAO, UNIDO, Sustainable Energy for All, which recognize bioethanol as a means for economic diversification for a lot of low and medium income countries. So when we see how different countries use bioethanol and how it creates returns for farmers, for the economy, for the environment. I think that brings people together.
Well, let's keep working on that, because this good news story needs to spread so we get more adoption and more support. As we've been working on a clean energy future, a lower carbon intensity future, there's been a lot of discussion within many different stakeholder communities about, is it good enough? And is there something even better? And the quest for the perfect has oftentimes created barriers for agricultural solutions to be really valued for what they can bring to the table. So sometimes our environmental partners are concerned about indirect land use change or deforestation. Our food system partners are concerned about the role of animal agriculture in producing additional emissions. Our health partners are concerned about dietary imbalances. And when we show up talking about how animal agriculture operations are actually a solution, or in this case, corn and grain farmers are delivering products that go into a clean or renewable fuel, we often get the pushback that that's not good enough because you're creating other problems. And the quest for the perfect interferes with the continuous improvement of the good solutions we have today. So what can we do to help reorient this discussion? If the world is struggling to meet these goals, if the UN Director General has called for a SDG rescue plan, how can we use that to really recalibrate this conversation? Does it have to be perfect to deliver the outcome the world needs? So what are your thoughts there about how can we reach out to these other influential stakeholders whose voices are important and help them reorient their thinking from the quest for the perfect to the incremental good that we can create if we work together? Any thoughts there? Maybe Michael, starting with you.
Thank you. It's a very good question. I just look as a farmer. As a farmer, we're trying to make incremental improvements every year, because farmers always look at how can you leave the land better than how you received it, and so I think we need to get that message out. We're doing that continuous improvement all the time and doing it while still feeding the world. And there is an increasing population, and farmers are producing adequate food to feed the whole world. And so we all need to work together. An example of, you talk about the different groups, the FSF, Farmers for Sustainable Food in Wisconsin, they're actually in partners with the Nature Conservancy and Water Wisconsin, or Clean Water Wisconsin. These are groups that normally people would say would be at opposite ends of the table, but all three of them says, hey, if we can all work together, that's how we can get good achievement or good results. And even in the 5-6 years that they've been working together, in the farms, and I think it's somewhere around about 400,000 acres of ground, and a bit over 400,000 animals on those farms, predominantly dairy, but some young stock and some beef. But they've seen 31% reduction in nitrogen use, 61% reduction in phosphorus use, and a 53% reduction in sediment getting into rivers and streams. So we have to, but that's by everybody working together. So we just have to keep working that and keep getting the message out that by us all working together, we can really achieve a lot of good things.
Can I add something? I think we have to take a very pragmatic approach. I think we have to do more to explain to people what the benefits are about bioethanol, how it reduces emissions. And I think we also have to find common ground where we can find it. And I'll give you a good example of that. With clean cooking with ethanol, that is a very decisive way to improve the livelihoods of women and girls who in many countries are responsible for going out to collect wood, sometimes for 3 or 4 hours at a time, who then come home, cook in the house with firewood. And so if you introduce clean cooking into this household, which is no easy task, it's quite challenging, it will have a dramatic effect on women and girls' time to spend at school, earning an income. It has a direct effect on respiratory health if we're able to make this switch. And this is a really great example of there are solutions ready. I mean, we can do this. We can do clean cooking with ethanol. We can solve that problem. There's 2.2 billion people in the world who still are cooking with charcoal. We can address those emissions. So this is a great way to say we have to have a pragmatic approach. We need to deploy the solutions that we have now, and we can make a difference.
So the stakeholder communities that we work with are very diverse, and the fossil fuel industry is an important long-standing energy provider for the world, and we've been bumping into each other at meetings like the COP, and oftentimes competing or pointing fingers at each other. And I'm reflecting, Linda, on your comment about how long the internal combustion engine is going to be here. Even if we electrified every vehicle produced today going forward, we still have hundreds of millions of internal combustion powered vehicles on the road across the world. So as we're holding COP29 in Azerbaijan, a major gas and oil producing state, I'm hearing more recognition from the fossil fuel industry that they're ready to do their part. So what guidance or thoughts or recommendations would you have for a fresh start conversation with these partners? That it's not so much fighting for declining market share, it's about delivering the outcomes that the world needs and in turn being revalued and reappreciated. So is there a way to move from I'm right, you're wrong to actually bringing forward the pragmatic solutions that the world needs?
Well, I think part of it is that the fossil fuel industry is going to recognize that governments are going to make policy moves to reduce fossil fuel use, and that will probably be through the elimination of fossil fuel subsidies. It may be through increased taxes. So I think that with the fossil fuel industry, what I find is we do bump up against them in many forums. I think they also, to some degree, are trying to make investments in different energy sources. It's not going to be an easy, certainly it's not an easy marriage, but I think that they recognize that ethanol is a way to make their product more palatable to governments and to consumers. So it's a tough question, Ernie.
Well, maybe Gail Dennison isn't here to continue this conversation, but their work at the Hormel Institute that is really spotlighting this largely unknown additional problem from the burning of petroleum gasoline, as she talked about today, that the ultrafine particulate matters that come out the tailpipe are ingested and are creating mortality, especially in dense urban areas where young children and folks are breathing in these fumes. So we're hopeful that the good news solution that we have is going to be one that the fossil fuel industry will really wrap their heads around, because as I understand it, and I'm not a fuel engineer or technician, but about a quarter of every gallon of gasoline that's produced is composed of these aromatic compounds, benzene, toluene, I can't remember all the BTX names, but they're added to boost octane and improve vehicle performance. We've got something that the auto manufacturers need. They're looking for higher octane fuels to get the performance out of the new higher efficiency engines that they're designing. So might this be one of those win-win opportunities to sit down with our petroleum partners, and if 3/4 of the gallon is still a petroleum-derived fuel source, and we're offering 25% that can improve efficiency, reduce emissions, save lives, and cost less, could that be a winning message that helps us come together and demonstrate it's not either or, we're both in this together because we're both producing liquid fuels. And I think there's a dimension of this for both petroleum fuels as well as renewable natural gas. So maybe Linda, you first, and then Michael, I'd appreciate your thoughts on this, working towards creating a new conversation with other stakeholders in the petroleum industry.
I would just say that there is a track record for this. When the U.S. outlawed MTBE, methylbutyl ethyl, I think is the actual name for it. They outlawed that because of ground and water pollution in the U.S. That's when bioethanol really took off. That's one reason that it took off. So there are still remaining aromatics that can be replaced by bioethanol, and I think we'll see that as a means to bring these solutions to consumers and also to governments interested in reducing their climate emissions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there is a lot of opportunities on this. I know the digester on our dairy, it's actually an oil producing company that was the main sponsor behind that to help build that, and they're using those emissions, or the reduction in those emissions, for their greenhouse gas reductions. So unfortunately we can't use it on our farm, but I think there is a lot of opportunities. As the one thing I would have to say is, for all this sustainability to work, it has to be financially sustainable for the farmer in the first place. And sometimes people forget that. We all have to work together when farmers are financially sustainable, they will continue to outperform in producing food to feed the world.
So as we wind down here, and we've got about just 5 minutes left, I wanted to take the conversation even to another level, and that is the role of farmers in helping deliver these high-value solutions to SDGs. And my organization, Solutions on the Land, a farmer-led, U.S.-based NGO, we're active in 4 UN platforms. Here at the Climate Convention with our partners at IECA, but we also work with FAO in Rome, whose mission is primarily, not exclusively, focused on food security. We are members of the United Nations Environmental Program based in Nairobi that's concerned about environment. We're actively participating in the UN Water Conference. And every time we travel to a different UN convening, it seems like we're in a silo. And there's not adequate recognition that these well-managed agricultural landscapes can concurrently deliver a climate solution, a food security solution, a health solution. If we were in the convening of the World Health Organization is another example. So we're thinking, and maybe this is naive, but we're thinking that farmers who are on the front line of producing food, of being impacted by the climate crisis, of trying to support diverse operations that includes biodiversity, might be the common denominator that can connect across these siloed landscapes and help decision makers become more system thinkers and thinking about cross-boundary collaboration. So I know IECA does this every day, our host here, but IECA and us alone can't get this done. This is going to take a heavy, heavy lift. So what's your thoughts on the voice of farmers stepping up and demanding that we get out of silos and talking about how they could be further enabled with the right support, with the right enabling policy, with the right partnerships and markets to deliver these solutions concurrently. Is that naive thinking, or can we put Michael, you and Linda, your farmer members that work with U.S. Grains Council, in a higher profile position in these forums to share this good news story? Michael, how about you first?
Thank you. Well, and that's U.S. farmers and ranchers. We've always, our governance laws is that our chair and vice chair need to be active farmers, which we are, so we can have that farmer message. I know I challenge my fellow farmers too, that we all, it takes a lot of time to be on boards and involved in organizations, but if we're not sitting at the table, we're actually on the menu, and we need to be there, and because you need that common sense voice at the table, and I think there's like when we collaborate and get out of our silos. I know one of our board members at USFRA, they're actively working on a project in Tanzania, and where they're able to show different practices, and the farmers, by all working together and sharing practices from the US, from Brazil, as well as and in Tanzania, now they're showing that they're tripling their corn production. Well, it's a win-win for everyone, So.
Well, Ernie, I would just add, I think that at the U.S. Grains Council, we have 300,000 producers on 90 million acres of land, and a lot of farmers come to Washington, and it's amazing the stories that they have to tell, the stories that they have about reducing emissions, the stories they have to tell about advanced agriculture and the systems that they're using. So I think they are the best spokespersons to interact directly with decision makers and explain what they're doing on their land and how important it is to them. So I think they should be at the table.
Well, I know we're at time, but that is probably the perfect place to end. Farmers at the center of helping to co-create solutions and bringing their voices forward. And I would really want to thank IECA again for providing farmers with a home here at their pavilion. So there's a place where our voice can come together and resonate and be lifted up and heard. This is a massive undertaking, trying to achieve success with the SDGs, and unless we're all in this together, we're not going to get the progress that the world needs and we can benefit from when we're delivering solutions. So to Gail Dennison, Linda Schmid, Michael Crinian, thank you so much for spending this hour with us, bringing this good news story forward, and we'll look forward to sharing it as this recording is widely distributed across the world in the coming weeks. Thank you, and we'll see you on the COP floor.
I'm waiting for you to turn the mic off.
We kind of winged it, but...